This movie tells the story of Asari, a sex worker who stole from her boss, Captain. The next day, she runs to a faraway community where she is able to acquire for herself a house and rejoices at her newfound freedom. Next, we get introduced to Pastor Mide, his wife Shade, and their daughter Simi. Pastor Mide is obviously displeased at his wife's maltreatment towards a young chorister, Abeni, who is pregnant out of wedlock. She claims her attitude is justifiable, but this doesn't sit well with their daughter, Simi. Meanwhile, Asari is having the time of her life, purchasing new items and handing out generous tips to the marketers. That night, Asari dresses up and leaves her house. She walks until she finds a bar. Inside the bar, Toby is engaging his friends, Ope and Thomas, in a conversation when she walks in. Ope, first spotting her, calls their attention towards her. He tries standing up to go approach her, but Toby pulls him down and suggests to go himself. When he sees his tactics are failing to impress her, he offers her money and pleads with her to follow him into the toilet and stay a while, so his friends would think they've had something, and she jokingly agrees. Few minutes later, they come back out and she waves goodbye to his friends. The next day, the news of Toby's act spread like wildfire across the community, and every man wanted to see and experience her, even down to the marketplace. When Yewande went to purchase meat, the two men were lost in conversation about Asari, and she had to cause a scene to get their attention. That night, when Shalewa tries to prevent her husband, Toby, from going out, he tricks her and runs off, but she secretly follows him to the bar where she finds him with Asari. She leaves and goes to gather the church women for a meeting. When Shade inquires of her the purpose of the gathering, Yewande speaks up that all their husbands are being drawn to a particular prostitute in town. She explains how they've been spending all their monies on her. Shade suggests they fast and pray for their husbands, but Yewande interrupts her, saying this isn't the time for prayer, but for action. Another woman proposes they all march to her house and confront her. But when they hear she lives in the town's haunted house, they all lose their fire. When another woman questions Shade if she will join them in the march, she retorts that her husband isn't in the prostitute's company, so she will remain in church with her assistant, Tunde, and pray. Shalewa, not being able to contain her disappointment, opts to go confront Asari herself and leaves them. She noiselessly sneaks into Asari's house and mistakenly falls her pot, making Asari to rush into the kitchen. Shalewa tries to belittle her, but Asari's response throws her off and she ends up in tears. Feeling remorseful, Asari offers her tissues and made her sit. When she figures out Toby is Shalewa's husband, she laughs and tells her Toby is a funny guy. She then asks Shalewa to wait a little, while she goes in and comes back out with a box, which she gives to her. She proudly tells Shalewa that she made them and instructs her on what to do. They become fast friends and Shalewa thanks her. At home, she tries on the lingerie and tries to quickly cover up when she sees Toby, but he rushes her and exclaims that he loves everything about her looks, and they continue their love play. Meanwhile, Asari's former boss, Captain, is still relentlessly searching for her. That night, as Asari is having drinks all by herself at the bar, Ope convinces Thomas to go talk to her since he can't seem to keep his eyes off her. Thomas takes his advice and approaches her. He strikes a conversation, but she doesn't seem interested. When she learns his wife is dead, she goes soft on him, and he pleads that all he wants is companionship. She teases him and tells him that's not how things work, that he'll have to first make an offer. He scrambles for money in his pocket and offers it to her. She takes it and tells him to go wait for her outside. Asari takes him to her bedroom and as they get on the bed, a needle pricks him. She apologizes and returns after dropping the needle, but he gets up and admits to her that he only wants someone to talk to and not sex. She offers him back his money and screams for him to get out. He pleads with her to keep it, saying he just wants to be her friend, but Asari isn't buying any of that. As things get awkward between them, he walks out, leaving her completely stunned. The next Sunday, as Simi leads the church in a praise session, Shalewa dances like never before, causing the women to wonder at her display, including Toby. After service, Yewande and Morenike ask her about the Asari situation. She tells them of the miracle bra she was gifted and how it's been working for her like magic. She even takes them over to Asari's place. Asari happily entertains them and they both purchase a lingerie set. Later that night, as they put it on to seduce their husbands, they all get the result they wanted. So the next day, Shalewa returns to Asari's place with a large crowd of women. Much later that night, as Asari is finishing up a dress, she hears a knock and meets Thomas outside. He apologizes and offers her a peace offering, but she rejects it, and as he explains himself and walks off, she calls him back. The church ladies visit Asari the next day at her home and turned it into a mini salon. They tell her the story of the haunted house and plead with her to attend their church. That evening, Abeni goes into labor. As Pastor Mide pleads with his wife, Shade, to show her support, she's adamant on not going. He gets frustrated and leaves, making her reconsider. When Simi and Shade finally go to visit Abeni, she tries to mutter something but couldn't and dies. Shade tries praying for her, but the screams of the women present drowns her voice. The next morning, Simi goes to pick up her mother's black dress for the funeral when a boy meets with her. We discover that she is pregnant and wants to remove it, but the boy pleads with her to keep it as she may lose her life in the process. She tells him either ways she is dead because of her mom and walks out. That night, a funeral procession was held for Abeni, and as the service was ongoing, Asari walks in and sits close to Thomas. Shade and Tunde take note of her. Tunde then whispers in her ears who Asari is. She gets up, removes her hairscarf and covers Asari's legs with it, interrupting the service and Pastor Mide. Her attitude leaves Asari feeling some type of way. After the service, she asks Thomas about the death of his wife. And as he explains how his wife's bipolar condition got worse after the birth of their child, he gets really emotional and she comforts him. He asks her about her history, but she tells him a little mystery is good. When he opts to take her home, she tells him to hold on and leaves to return Shade's scarf. Shade tells her to keep it and says she may have fooled all the women in the church, but she knows she is a devil in sheep's clothing. All this while, Shalewa signals for Asari to calm down. Even as Shade and Tunde leaves, Yewande and Shalewa plead with her not to confront Shade. The following night, Thomas invites Asari to a function. She's already bonding with his daughter when he joins them and shortly introduces her to his mom, who takes an instant liking to her. She tells Asari to take care of her son and leaves to go bring them food. And for the first time that night, Asari kisses Thomas, leaving him speechless. As Captain inspects his new workers, he notices the bra one of the girls wore and demands to know where she purchased it. At his farm, Pastor Mide sends Simi over to Asari's place with eggs to apologize for his wife's behavior towards her. Asari receives it heartily, and as Simi is about leaving, Asari stops her and inquires how long she's been pregnant. Simi begins to cry and plead with Asari not to tell her mom. Inside the house, Asari comforts and encourages her to tell her parents. Simi meets up with Deji the following day and tells him she's keeping the baby. Shalewa also visits Asari and complained bitterly about being pregnant for the 6th time. She tells her she has no plans of keeping it and she feels she has wasted her life as she has no skill or business or even something she can fall back on. Asari comforts her and asks what's the one thing she really loves to do. She replies that she could bake and likes to do it, but gave it up when Shade told her her cakes look like beans pudding. Asari gets up, enters her kitchen, and comes out with a big pot. She tells Shalewa they will fill it up with sand and bake with it, but right now they will need to go to the market. Shalewa thanks Asari in tears, calling her one true friend. The next day, during their women's fellowship meeting, hosted by Shalewa, Asari enters and the women warmly welcome her, but Shade picks up her flax and walks to the kitchen. Shalewa follows after her and Yewande takes over the meeting. Inside the kitchen, Shade is scolding Shalewa for inviting Asari. Shalewa tries to explain herself, but Shade walks out and interrupts Yewande. After reading a scripture from her Bible, she begins scolding the women, telling them they're frolicking with Jezebel's twin. After much insult, Asari stands up and leaves. Shalewa angrily confronts Shade, and as things get heated, she brings up the death of Abeni and blames Shade for playing a major role in ostracizing her. Shade leaves the gathering, and the women force Tunde to leave also. And inside her car, she cries bitterly to Tunde. Weeks later, during their annual fundraising, Shade visits the canopy of each woman to commend their effort. When she gets to Shalewa, she attempts to mock her cake, but Shalewa forces a piece into her mouth and she is surprised at how good it tastes. As she spots Asari, she brazenly tries to put her down by calling her a prostitute. This time around, Asari confronts her and the other women seem to be in support, but this doesn't sit well with Tunde. That night, Asari is having a bad dream. She recalls how she was sold into prostitution by Captain and her futile attempt to run away as a child. She wakes up to find Captain staring down at her. After a back and forth exchange of words, he tells her that she owes him and he must be paid. He beckons for her to come closer, and when she does, he hits her. He asks for her to get dressed as they'll be going out. He takes her to the bar she usually frequents, and as they are seated, Thomas, Toby, and Ope enter the bar and are shocked at the new girls present there. Thomas goes to ask Asari if she's alright, and she rudely asks for him to leave. She tries to signal him, but he doesn't take a hint until Captain hits him and his boys attack Toby and Ope. Meanwhile, as service was ongoing at the church, multiple gunshots were heard. Captain's boys were terrorizing the town and the congregation ran for safety. Back at their home, Shade is confronting her husband, saying he should have chased Asari away from the onset, and now the entire village is in fear because of her. As things get heated between them, Semi enters and screams that she is pregnant, and Shade gives her a resounding slap. Pastor Mide pleads with her to calm down, but she grabs her car keys and takes her to where she will remove it. They meet Shalewa there, and the three of them are embarrassed at the situation. Shade cries all through her drive back home. At the house, Simi is apologizing to her father for disappointing them. In tears, he tells her they will help raise the child on the condition that she will complete her formal education, and he walks out. Shade calls her assistant Tunde and is crying profusely to him on the phone. She says Asari is the cause of it all, and now Simi is pregnant. Tunde comforts her, saying their God is not a silent God, but a consuming fire. Thomas refuses to be still and do nothing, so he picks up his car keys and leaves. Tunde is seen walking on the street and chanting that his God is a consuming fire. Back at her place, Asari hurriedly packs her bags. It is obvious that she is trying to run away, but Captain catches up with her. He beats her and tries strangling her, and that's when she picks up her iron and hits him on the head, which leads to him falling to the floor unconscious. Tunde reaches Asari's house and throws a flaming bottle into it. Asari tries and quickly carries her box out, leaving Captain behind. The fire at Asari's apartment attracted the neighbors and everyone around. Thomas gets there and tries to rush in, but he is stopped by the crowd, and shortly Asari walks out and they embrace. At the side, Tunde is caught by some women, and as the crowd beats him, he continues to scream that his God is a consuming fire. The news of Tunde's act reaches Pastor Mide and Shade. It is obvious that she feels really sad at the turn of events, and Pastor Mide comforts her. The next day, the church women show up at Thomas's door with cleaning equipment. When Asari comes out, Shade comes forward and says she gathered some of the ladies to help her out. Asari is really touched at her act of kindness and hugs her. In church the next day, Pastor Mide calls her out for her Thanksgiving. The movie ends as the whole congregation joins her in thanking God. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification for the next.